Hey, Dan, fresh off UBCM and straight into an election campaign.
Yeah, and city council is just getting back after their summer break starting this week.
Yeah, all the municipal councils get back at it this week. I thought we could talk. There's one councillor, Councillor Christine Boyle, is running in the provincial election, running for the NDP in Vancouver Little Mountain, which is a fairly strong riding, I would imagine, for the NDP, at least demographically. We'll have to wait for election night. But
Sure.
if she is elected as an MLA, that triggers a by-election. What does that look like? I mean, just generally.
Yeah, so that'll be interesting. I mean, obviously, so Vancouver City Council is in session right now, and Councillor Boyle's not there. She's on a leave. Start basically, I guess, starting with the campaign period, and so she's out campaigning. Coincidentally, she's running against another former longtime Vancouver municipal politician, John Cooper, who was a longtime Vancouver Park Board commissioner with the NPA, and then was for a little while the NPA's mayoral candidate ahead of the most recent election, although he dropped out of that race before election day. And kind of we didn't hear much from him on the political scene until he's obviously popped up, and now he's running for the Conservatives in Vancouver Little Mountain. And so, if Boyle doesn't get elected, then presumably she'll return to her work on city council. If she does get elected, then that is going to trigger a by-election because it's early enough in the term, the municipal term, that the rules state that they'll have to have a by-election and you can't have an empty seat for the next 2 years. So that by-election would happen at some point, I believe, in the new year. And that will be kind of interesting. I mean, by-elections are kind of funny because typically you have relatively low numbers of people actually voting. A lot of people might not know that there even is a council by-election going on potentially. But for the people who do follow these things, they'll kind of be watching it quite closely and be interested to see what happens, right? I would imagine, ABC, the ruling party with a supermajority, I would imagine, presumably they're going to maybe want to try to run someone, shore up, even increase their majority on council. Christine Boyle's party, One City, obviously would like to retain that seat. Christine Boyle is the only person who's ever had a council seat representing One City. This is her second term on Vancouver Council. They have run other candidates in the past, and some of them, have done reasonably well getting votes, but none of them were able to get over the line and get elected. So it'll be kind of interesting to see. I don't think it's out there yet who One City might put forward. Of course, at this point, the by-election is still a hypothetical because it depends on the results of the provincial election. But
would an additional seat for ABC give them any more power than they already have with their supermajority? Would it change any votes?
I guess it would just give them more of a buffer. I mean, effectively, they already have a supermajority, which means, so for most council votes, you just need more than 50% to approve something. But there's specific kinds of considerations, including like buying and selling real estate, certain kinds of financial decisions like issuing grants. There are certain decisions where you need a supermajority, which means 2/3 of council. ABC currently has that because they have 7 councillors and the mayor, so that's 8 out of 11 votes.
Right.
Now, they usually vote all together as a block. However, there have been some examples recently where they have not voted as a block. There was a recent 6-5 vote where 2 ABC members voted against the ABC majority. Now that was on a question that didn't require a supermajority, but it kind of shows that it is possible for them to not always vote as a block. And so in that situation, I guess, they might like to have another vote to work with. But no, I don't think, I mean, yeah, they already have the supermajority, but I guess the issue is that if they don't all vote together.
Right. Historically, as you said, there's often very low turnouts for by-elections,
Yeah.
provincial, federal, local, like they get low turnouts. And oftentimes what we see is the electorate um, using it to punish the party that's in office if they
Yeah.
choose to do so.
There
I
is that kind
wonder,
of conventional wisdom.
yeah,
That
I
it's
don't know
kind
if this would be any different when you look at, I mean, the ABC so dominated the last municipal election. Like I
oh yeah.
think, whatever, 60 to 70,000 votes per candidate. And then Adrian Carr was the one who got on there with 40,000 votes roughly.
Yeah.
So there's a huge gap between support for ABC and everybody else, Boyle, Fry.
Yeah.
So whether that translated into a by-election, I guess, would be interesting to see as a test of ABC popularity then versus popularity now if we got any kind
Yeah.
of turnout.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, like you say, like, not only did ABC, you know, all of their candidates got elected, but I mean, every candidate who had ABC beside their names finished literally top of the polls. And this was
Right.
ABC's, this was the first election that ABC existed as an entity. So I like there's no one from any other party has ever beaten an ABC candidate so far, has ever gotten more votes than any ABC candidate. So if ABC did not win the by-election, that would be the first time that any candidate has ever gotten more votes than an ABC candidate.
Right.
But
The other
like you say,
dynamic, I
there is
guess, the
sorry,
significant dynamic since the election, of course, is what's happened with the park board and
sure,
Ken Sims promised to abolish it. ABC park board commissioners becoming, sitting now as
three
independents.
of them, yeah,
I imagine there would be a certain group of people who would be motivated, perhaps, to vote in a by-election against ABC if they align themselves with those disgruntled parks board commissioners.
potentially. Yeah, no, I mean that's a possibility. Again, hard to know their numbers, but it is certainly something, I've heard from some people who supported ABC in the last election, but were upset about what happened with the park board. Those people are out there. There are people who feel that way. Um, it's hard for me to know if that is a big enough block of people to, determine an election. But as we say, by-elections are typically pretty low turnout affairs anyway. So, a
Right.
relatively small number of votes could swing things one way or the other.
Right. It's a good place for people to test messages or to test new strategies. When you think about, again, if you think of ABC as the center-right party, um, who is the voice of the left right now? You've got a couple of Green, so they would presumably run somebody as well, and maybe try to get a third seat
Yeah.
on council. But
Yep.
then also, would Forward Vancouver come back? Kennedy Stewart's old party. What about, would there be some effort on the left to generate a center left or a left party to take on ABC?
Or to, I don't know, to resurrect the Vision brand, or I don't know. I mean, obviously, this kind of idea that there's all this fracturing on the left
Yes.
is something that people in local left-wing progressive politics are kind of worried about. That's the reason that the Vancouver and District Labor Council kind of came out so far ahead of the next provincial election and said they wanted to back one city and they wanted to try to get everybody to work together. Um, who knows what's going to happen there. But
Right.
yeah, I definitely don't know what to expect. I
Well,
mean,
that be
it could
something
be
that, yeah,
it
right.
could be because there's 2 years left in this council term almost at that point. So there's potentially maybe it could be an opportunity for a candidate, a new person in municipal politics. Um, if they are able to kind of get elected, get a seat on council, and use that as kind of a stepping stone to potentially run for mayor.
Right.
2 years in the future. That's the last time Vancouver had a by-election was 2017 when Vision Councillor Jeff Meggs left to go be then NDP Premier John Horgan's chief of staff. That freed up a council seat, and as you say, there's this conventional wisdom that it's often kind of a by-elections punish the ruling party. In that case, it was the case where Vision was in their third term of having a supermajority. They ran a by-election candidate, but lost to the NPA challenger, Hector Bremner, who then a year later wanted to run for mayor. So he, you sort of used that council by-election as a chance to get into council, get his name out there, get familiar with City Hall, get City Hall familiar with him, get the public familiar with him. Then he ran for mayor. He sought the NPA's mayoral nomination. He didn't get that. He ran against the NPA, didn't win that. But so that's kind of the most recent example we have of this of a municipal by-election. The last one before that was decades earlier. So it's not like these happen super frequently.
Right. Okay. Well, if it does happen, it'll be interesting, and I know you'll be on top of it. In the meantime, council meeting this week, and I guess when we talk again next week, we'll have some substantive council business to talk about, and who knows what else happens on the provincial campaign trail in the city.
Who knows?
All right. Thanks, Dan.
Great. Okay. Thanks, Harold.